3 games into the preseason, what has stood out for your Miami Heat? Is Jamal Cain the real deal? Has Nikola Jovic earned a spot in the rotation? Is Phoenix's Jae Crowder no longer an option for the Heat? We open up the mailbag to answer your questions on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on all things Miami Heat. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcast, thank you so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil, who is recording from FTX Arena after Heat shoot-around on Monday morning. The Heat have signed Jamal Cain to a two-way contract and waived Darius Days. We'll discuss the Heat's plan for both of them later on in the show. Plus, we'll get to some of your listener questions. But let's start today, David, with Duncan Robinson, who I think based on this first 3 games of this preseason, and got different people have been in and out. Tyler Herro, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry have not played all these games, but Duncan Robinson, I would have to say, early on, the standout of the Miami Heat preseason. 29 points against Memphis on Friday night. The shot looks great, as you and I have talked about. He looks really confident taking those threes, but he's also including new things into his game. He's attacking closeouts off the dribble. He's putting the ball on the ground better than he ever has before. He's still moving off ball with the same verve and motion, constant motion that he always has had. And Eric Spoelstra remarking a couple days ago that Duncan Robinson, he's noticed, has gotten a little bit better defensively, a little bit better with his footwork, a little bit better with, to use his word, containment, which screams to me not fouling as much with those hands. We still see it here and there. But overall, David, I'd have to say Duncan Robinson, really impressive in this preseason.
Shut off a nice floater, if I recall correctly, against the Grizzlies, too. That's not something that was in his bag over the first couple of seasons in Miami. So nice to see him incorporating some of that soft shooting touch off the dribble as well as beyond the three-point line. I absolutely agree. We have talked about it before. He just looks like a much better version of whoever he was last year, but even a better version of whoever he was a few seasons ago. I don't think he's ever going to get that kind of spacing again. Those days might be over for him, because there was the moment there during the maybe 29-20 season where he was, trying to figure out who Jimmy Butler was and trying to deal with a new version of Bam Adebayo, a more confident version of Bam who was inserted into the starting lineup. And Duncan was the beneficiary of that. That's no longer the case. The scouting report on him is very, very deep, but now he's changing things up. I don't know, again, that he's going to get those open looks from three-point line, but he's going to continue to get those shots, and he's going to make most of them. I think that's just a reality of who he is as a shooter. If he can have that confidence back, if he can start changing things up and incorporating little things into his offensive repertoire to make him a little bit more versatile, a little bit harder to game plan for, I think you're going to see a legitimate weapon out there. And I like his role coming off the bench. I know people are going to complain because, people complain anyway about the amount of money he's making. But for what he is as a role player, I think it's well-deserved.
We've seen a lot of lineups in this preseason with him and Max Strus out there together. I think we asked Spo about this at some point, and it's hard to read if that's just because so many guys have been unavailable. Victor Oladipo hasn't played this entire preseason. You imagine he's going to play a prominent role off the bench. Sounds like he's going to play tonight, by the way, Monday night against the Rockets, but we'll see, I guess, on that. But it'll be interesting to see how Spo finds those minutes for Duncan Robinson, because you're right, he's not starting. We know this. This team goes 10 deep, probably, of guys who you think probably have earned some kind of role in the rotation. You could even argue maybe even 11 deep. Do you think Duncan Robinson has done enough to get a night-to-night rotation role, whatever it looks like?
I think you have to have a quick hook, right? I think something that we've seen from Spo, maybe not as much during the regular season because he likes to keep his rotations pretty set. And maybe we'll see the, occasional starting role for him. Like if somebody's hurt and maybe you can say, Duncan's been playing well of late. And look, with Spo, we all know a lot of it is behind the scenes, right? Whatever the work is in practice, you earn your spots that way. So I think he's going to continue to get playing time. I'm just not sure how regular it is. And again, I think it's something you have to monitor on a game-to-game basis. Like, is his shot falling? Does he look confident out there? Does he get into foul trouble? Does he continue to do things to earn those spots on a night-to-night basis? And the answers are all positive. Then I can't see him being. Look, you have so many different options. We haven't even seen Oladipo at any point during the offseason.
Right.
So, and he's going to get a significant amount of minutes. Nikola Jovic is making a strong case to get more playing time. And we're not even talking about perhaps the hottest player of all on the Heat roster. That's Jamal Cain. So you've got all these different players deserving of minutes. I don't know how you can find a spot for Duncan regularly.
If you just look at how Eric Spoelstra approached it late last year when Duncan Robinson lost his starting job, he would give him those early minutes. And like you said, he would give him the quick hook. And it usually came with just foul trouble. At that point, it wasn't even whether or not the three-point shot was going in. It was like, okay, if this guy picks up 2 early fouls in the first quarter, he's probably not going to play long-term in the game. Looking at the depth chart right now, I would say, like, penned in, obviously, for major roles, Kyle Lowry, Tyler Herro, Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin, Bam Adebayo. Probably what we anticipate to be the starting lineup. Those 5 guys, huge rotation minutes every night, obviously. After that, I would say Victor Oladipo. Again, we haven't seen him in this preseason. I would imagine he's going to get that role, probably coming off the bench as a 6th man. You're going to see him every single night. Max Strus, I think, is probably in that realm too. Spo seems to trust him on both ends of the court. He makes shots. We also like what we've seen from him in the preseason as well, a little off-the-dribble stuff that he's been developing. After that, Omer Yurtseven, maybe. I don't think he's had that impressive of a preseason, but I would imagine it's him or Dwayne Dedmon, maybe even both of them. After I don't really know who is. We haven't really seen a whole lot of Gabe Vincent. I don't think that he's got a regular role right away, considering that Victor Oladipo might be your backup point guard in a sense. Like I wouldn't say that I'm ready to just pen in Gabe Vincent with a Sharpie as part of the night-to-night rotation. Haywood Highsmith, same thing. Impressive preseason. It depends. Like if Spo really does want to use Bam at power forward more often, maybe it's as simple as, all right, Caleb Martin is our starting power forward, and then for other, when Caleb's not on the court, maybe it's Bam Adebayo at the 4, maybe it's Jimmy Butler in a speed lineup at the 4, and you don't really need anybody to be sort of your quote-unquote backup 4. Nikola Jovic, same thing. So I don't really know who on this team, outside of probably 7 guys, has in Sharpie, every night this player is going to play. And what that means for Duncan Robinson is it's open for him. There is an opportunity there for Duncan Robinson to play every single night. And I think if he could build off this preseason and get back to shooting 40+%, making those contested threes, moving off ball and affecting the offense in a positive way, the way that he has, and finding a 2-man game with Tyler Herro or Victor Oladipo or Bam Adebayo or somebody else that was so important to him that first year when he kind of came onto the scene for Miami. I think it's available to him. There is an opportunity there for Duncan Robinson.
No, I'd have to agree. You didn't even mention Kane, right? Like who has been the darling so far. I mean, you're 12 deep, I guess. We're looking at 7 in pen and another 5, maybe even a 6 kind of in pencil there as far as whether or not they continue to get playing time. And that's going to be, I think, on a night-to-night basis. And look, this is the Heat. We've seen them struggle with injury on occasion. Somebody's going to get hurt in that starting lineup, which means there's going to be an opportunity for somebody else down the road. And it's going to be hard to, if they perform well, to take them out of that lineup eventually. So it's going to be something worth monitoring, but I like the depth. Like, I don't think anybody would have said this Heat team had that kind of depth going into the season, and it's turned out to be one of their greatest strengths.
It's more of a chemistry experiment now for Eric Spoelstra, right? Which 2- and 3-man combinations am I going to lean on? Who the starter is going to be? What lineups do I want to get to over the course of the game? It's going to be a challenge, and I think for sure we'll see a lot of different kind of experimenting early in the season. I think you'll get a lot of people given chances within the first 15 to 20 games or so. We mentioned Jamal Cain. Is he a factor in the rotation? New guy on the 2-way contract. We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Heat. But first, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps identify the right people for your team faster and for free. Then, all you have to do is add your job and the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you could quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Back here with Locked On Heat. We're going to talk about Nikola Jovic and Jae Crowder here in a minute. But first, thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure to check out the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview starting October 10th, a 6-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NBA season. The local team experts and the NBA insiders of the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey all combining into one Ultimate NBA Preview. It's starting today. All you have to do is search for the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Heat have promoted Jamal Cain to a 2-way contract and have waived forward Darius Days, who was previously on that 2-way deal and promised to have a pub sub with me. I guess we're going to have to put a pin in that. But the plan is for Days to join the G League affiliate in Sioux Falls, while Cain is rewarded for a standout training camp in the preseason. No Publix in South Dakota, David. So tough thing for Darius Days, but it does sound like...
Did you actually look it up? Did we see if they had any locations there?
I guess I didn't look it up, but I think Publix regionally is not touching South Dakota.
You're probably right. South Dakota is South Dakota. I don't see any reason why they'd extend it to Sioux Falls.
Right. Like, hey, look, we're going to expand. And I think the number one place where we want to kind of put our flag is
LA,
Sioux Falls,
Vegas, Sioux Falls.
That's going to be our expansion beta test. We'll see if it goes well. I've actually been to Sioux Falls where that arena is, and it's like only a Chili's next to that arena is the only thing to eat. And I guess whatever's at the vending machine in the Marriott across
there, right?
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe they're just it's a whole lot of margaritas and chips and salty chips and salsa. Anyway, let's talk about Jamal Cain, because what a preseason this guy has had. You talk to people around the team, David, even before the preseason started, and they kept telling you the name that kept coming up, Jamal Cain. Look at Jamal Cain. What he did in the Bahamas was so impressive and turned so many heads, and they're in love with his athleticism. 6'7" forward, 190 pounds. We kind of got the first glimpse of him against the Brooklyn Nets in that home preseason game, and he was bodying up Kevin Durant. He looked really good, obviously, with the 5 steals in that game. You and I recapped that. And then Friday night against Memphis, another huge night for him. What have you made of Jamal Cain? What do you think of the move overall to basically swap him into that 2-way spot?
Well, I think it shows the way the NBA is trending and the way Miami is adapting, right? Going into the season without a set power forward or whatever that position typically or traditionally was. They were comfortable going with Caleb Martin. And we think, well, you want to keep somebody with the kind of size that has been historically the requisite for the position. They said no. Darius didn't get those kind of opportunities, either didn't do enough in camp and certainly didn't do enough while he was actually out there playing through limited minutes to earn that spot. But how could you take it away from Cain? He's another long wing player who could probably add some more weight over the course of his career. But right now, he just seems to be everywhere at once. Another guy who we've seen, along with Haywood Highsmith, kind of compare favorably, I think, to what we saw from Caleb last year. Just always in the right place at the right time, making something happen on offense or defense, finding a way to get the body in there or to intercept a pass, break up a pass, using those long arms to challenge shots. It's been phenomenal on defense. He's comfortable on offense. I did not expect that. He's letting it fly. This isn't just, it's the preseason. I got to put up points. He looks comfortable out there. He's got the ball in the corner. He says, you know what? I've got the open 3. I'll take it. Capable of driving to the rim. Certainly athletic enough to catch lobs. Just a really versatile offensive game. And defensively, just continue to make a positive impact.
Good off the ball. He's shown some flashes as like sort of a natural instinctual cutter too. Look, it's been only a couple of preseason games for him. You don't want to make too much of it. I don't know that I'm ready to factor him into the rotation, but in getting Darius Days in the first place, it was clear that the Heat were looking to just create more competition at that power forward spot. Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith, Nikola Jovic are the guys, and then maybe, Bam Adebayo will play there a little bit, but they're looking for a nominal power forward, and they're looking to create some competition there. Clearly, they bring in Jamal Cain, and he outplays Darius Days, even though they were really impressed with Days after Summer League, what Days was doing for San Antonio's Summer League team. And it was a big win for the organization to bring him on. At least they felt that way. And then Cain just blows them out of the water and earns that 2-way role. They'll still be able to groom Days, by the way. I think they still like him. They'll be able to groom him in Sioux Falls still. But Cain is the guy, to your point, who seems more ready to make an impact right away. You don't want to make too much out of the preseason, but based on the small sample, Cain looks so much more comfortable out there right now than Darius Days does. It's easier for him to find his spots. He's way more versatile. And then when you look at the loss of PJ Tucker, it's written all over Darius Days, like, okay, kind of the same size, kind of same game. Comparison told us on Media Day, he compares himself to PJ Tucker. That's who kind of he modeled his game after. But there really is only one PJ Tucker for a reason, right? I think ultimately this team is starting to kind of lean towards more athleticism, more speed, that the kind of guy that Jamal Cain does. Right? If you look at Caleb Martin as that starting power forward, even Haywood Highsmith and Jamal Cain, they're kind of all similar in that way where they can just move a little bit more than PJ Tucker can. They're a little bit more versatile, a little bit more fast twitchy than PJ Tucker is, who's more of a muscle kind of guy. And if that's where the Heat are leaning, that kind of tells you what they're going to try to be doing offensively and defensively and all these kinds of things. It kind of sets the tone for what they're trying to do.
We've heard about the big lineup. We've heard about the small lineup, but this might be the speed lineup, right? Like with Cain out there on the floor, diving to the rim, catching lobs, with Jovic at all 6'11", running point on certain occasions, just pushing the ball in pace. This is just an electrifying option for Spo to bring off the bench here. So again, it's hard to see whether or not he's going to get any kind of consistent playing time, but he's certainly done enough to be in the conversation. And what a great place it is for Miami, right? I don't think we've ever had in the years that we've been doing this show, well, why don't you bring this guy off the bench? Or why don't you bring this guy off the bench? We never had that option. Like you had these starting lineups during those odd years in between the tail end of Dwayne's career when he was in Chicago and Cleveland. Sorry, I know a lot of people ignore that part, but it just, you didn't have enough talent on this team to say, give Derek Williams a chance, right? Or that
right.
That Luke Babbitt kid really needs some more opportunity. Nobody was saying that. But all of a sudden now you've got Cain, you've got Jovic, you've got Highsmith, who's a high energy guy. You've got all these other different options. Omer Yurtseven even. A lot of guys with a lot of energy that bring a different dimension to what we've seen traditionally from this Heat team and change the pace of what the starting lineup will expectedly do. We're pretty sure about what the starting lineup is going to be. Tyler and Caleb, I think that's pretty much set in stone. Given that you have other options, and it's a good place to be, like I said, to have these young players continue to be factors. They're on low budget contracts, and you can continue to develop them, teach them the Heat, culture method, whatever you want to call it, development, and then just continue to add to your depth and make it be a legitimate strength. It's not, you have your hierarchy. Yeah. You've got Bam, you've got Jimmy, you've got Kyle, you've got Tyler. Everybody else learns how to fall in place, and that just makes the team better overall.
It's a pipeline. To your point that they're creating, let's not forget Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Omer Yurtseven, all playing on a contract year this season. They very unlikely that the Heat are able to bring all three of them back next year. And so you've got the Haywood Highsmiths, the Marcus Garretts, who's still on that two-way, Jamal Cain now, other players still in Sioux Falls who you're grooming to possibly backfill these guys. They're creating a pipeline, to your point, of guys who can complement what it is that your core building blocks can do. And Tyler Herro, fresh off that extension, is clearly a part of that. Look, I think one of these guys at least probably needs to pop, whether it's Cain, Highsmith, Yurtseven, in the way that Max Strus and Gabe Vincent did last year for Miami to really get the most out of that group. But they're going with the guys that they like, and they have a good track record of getting the most out of guys like that in the past. All right, should also mention, like I said, Victor Oladipo is expected to make his preseason debut tonight. We will have a recap of the Rockets game later tonight. But next, we will talk about Nikola Jovic and whether or not he is going to be a factor in this rotation, plus the latest on Jae Crowder that's coming up next here on Locked On Heat. But first, David, tell them about BetOnline.
BetOnline, your number one source for all your football betting info this season. I know South Florida fans a little down after what happened to the Hurricanes and to the Dolphins, but you can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, betonline.net remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information with live betting, up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, baseball playoffs, boxing, golf, football, and of course the NBA. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
To help Heat fans get ready for the upcoming season, Official League, the fastest growing sports merch company, is launching an exclusive limited edition hat inspired by Miami Heat star Bam Adebayo and designed by viral artist NBA Paint. Only 100 will be available of each hat for purchase at officialleague.com. And the new silhouette features a funny food character inspired by each player. Bam Adebayo is Ham Adebayo. And here's even better news. You don't have to buy it. We're going to be giving away a free hat to one of you to enter for a chance to win a free Official League Ham Adebayo hat. All you have to do is leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and then take a screenshot of that review and email it to us at lockedonheat@gmail.com. And if you're averse to email, send it to us on Twitter, DM it on Instagram, however you want to do it. Here's the catch. You only have until Bam Adebayo attempts at least 18 shots in a game. That includes preseason. Like we said, the Heat play tonight. So get those reviews in now, because once we do that, we're going to close entries. Email a screenshot of your 5-star rating and review to lockedonheat@gmail.com for a chance to win a free official league Bam Adebayo hat. Let's move on to some listener questions that we have trickling in. We got this one from Kyle and Angel. They both ask, considering the depth in the front court with Bam, Yurt, Dedmon, Caleb Martin, and potentially Haywood Highsmith, has Jovic played well enough in the preseason to warrant some regular season minutes? If so, whose minutes does he take? What do you think, David?
I think so. I mean, look, we kind of went over this when we're looking at the whole rotation. It's just another option to have. And I think he's certainly a legitimate one. Like, we had concerns. He had concerns. I just talked to him a few minutes ago. And at Media Day, he told us, it's the speed of the NBA that was his biggest issue moving forward. He didn't know how he was going to adjust. He struggled with it in Summer League, and he thought it was going to be an issue in the NBA. So far, it has not been. Like, this is just preseason, and I know he's probably going up against slower players or maybe just, backups and things of that sort. But that's not entirely the case. He matched up against Steven Adams, held his own, and challenged him in ways that we did not expect. So he's certainly done enough to merit consideration at the very least. He's going to be one of those other options for Spo to say, you know what, let's do something different. Let's throw Point Jovic out there and see how it works out. Let's, challenge their bigs to try and stay with this guy who's been putting in the work, getting that shot going, and has such a nice flair in offense. We talked about the fast-paced speed offense or speed lineup. He's certainly being a part of it, and why not? He's got the incredible court vision. He knows how to make the right play offensively. I think he's going to continue to improve defensively. He told me that he's gotten positive feedback from the coaching staff and other players in regards to his development. He feels much more comfortable out there. He doesn't feel as like it's a concern as much as it was when we talked to him in Media Day.
I don't think he's getting regular rotation minutes, but I do think he'll see regular season minutes, right? It'll probably be, victory cigar kind of minutes, or at the end of a blowout game, one way or the other. And you kind of get him out there and just try to get him a feel. Because look, he's 19. He hasn't even finished high school yet. And he needs, and he's going to need just some of those soft minutes that don't really matter just to kind of get.
We thought that about Tyler too, though. We thought that about Tyler, and it's proved to be completely different. I know that's a lottery pick, and you're invested financially in his development, but I don't see that it necessarily changes the way Spo sees things.
The difference with Tyler was that he had an NBA-ready skill right away. The dude could just shoot the ball and create his own shot, and that was evident right away. I don't know that Jovic has an NBA-ready skill right now. He's not. He would like to create his own shot. I'm not sure he's ready to do that at the NBA level. He's an instinctual passer. We like his feel for the game, as does Doris Burke, like we pointed out during that ESPN broadcast. But that feel for the game is not an NBA-ready skill day one. That to me shows upside. That's why I like Tyler Herro's upside so much, despite the limited athleticism. Is he's got elite feel for the game. Jovic has very high feel for the game. I just don't know what he's doing at an NBA level right away. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong. I think he's going to see minutes. I think there's so many other options that are a little bit more proven, that Eric Spoelstra is going to be a little bit more comfortable with, that in the meaty parts of a game that matter, he's going to go that way. But I do think that we'll see Jovic quite a bit in the regular season. I just don't think it'll be regular
minutes
meaty
would he cut into then? I mean, considering the versatility positionally, I'd say it's probably Dedmon's, maybe.
I think Dedmon, Yurtseven, Bam, Caleb. Like, I'm talking about end of games when these players are out, right? Like, it's a 20-point game with 4 minutes left. Take your starters out, put Jovic in there for whoever. Jimmy Butler, who cares? Just put him out there. Right. That's where I think it'll come. And then, look, injuries happen too. And I think Spo has proven that he's willing to experiment and, to your point, throw just different looks that other teams aren't expecting. That's kind of what – and you can kind of steal a game or two in December and January that way. So, maybe there's just a night where Spo's like, you know what? I like this matchup for Jovic. He's been really good in practice lately. And he says, Dwayne, you're not getting minutes tonight. Take a breather. We're giving them to Jovic. Or Highsmith, you're not getting any minutes tonight. We're giving them to Jovic. Whoever. I don't know. We'll see. Let's move on to this next question from Jake, who writes in, Shams reported that the Hawks are interested in trading for Jae Crowder. That's a new name. Do you think the Heat have moved on in their interest in Crowder? What do you think, David?
I think they'd love to have him back. Just there's an area of need. There's a comfort level with him. The Heat takes pride in that. They always love bringing back guys that are familiar with their system, that buy into the work, that buy into the culture, and Jae certainly fits along that. There's a comfort level with Jimmy that you can't take away. He's a proven veteran. Lots of positives in his favor. You just don't want to trade anything in order to get him. And I think that's the big concern there. He's like, if he's bought out for whatever reason, then surely you can figure it out.
Yeah.
The problem is now if you've got other teams, whether it's Boston, Milwaukee, Atlanta, or others vying for him and are willing to offer more of a trade package than Miami is, which at this point, I think Miami's trade package would be nothing. They don't want to trade for Jae. Then I think, yes, he's probably off the radar. And look, as we talked about all show, there are so many other options on this roster. Are you really going to take, minutes away from all these young development players so you can play Jae Crowder for 30 minutes a game? I'm not sure if that's the right call either.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you weren't confident in Caleb Martin or Haywood Highsmith or these guys to step up. But look, I think that Heat fans have a romanticized view of Jae Crowder that as some sort of three-point specialist, 3-and-D kind of guy. He's a really look, I like Jae Crowder, and if he's back in Miami, I would welcome him. But it's not like he's shooting 48% from the corners. He's a career 40% shooter from the corners. He's insanely streaky, and we all remember that great streak that he had in the bubble. But then we also we tend to forget the fact that it fizzled out in the conference finals and then the NBA finals against the Lakers, and he was a non-factor offensively. And it's not like he does anything off the dribble. It's not like he's a very good passer. It's just, hey, stand in the corner and shoot threes. And he's got such confidence with that three-point shot, which you like, but sometimes it's a little Russell Westbrookian where it's like, dude, you've missed 7 in a row. Maybe not. Maybe just don't. So, look, I like Jae Crowder, but you are absolutely right. The Heat are hoping that he gets bought out from Phoenix, or that Phoenix, salary dumps him to San Antonio or OKC or something like that. And those teams who don't need a veteran power forward like that just buy him out, and they're able to get a draft pick in exchange for it or something like that because Phoenix is just trying to move off his money or something. We'll see. What I found interesting about Shams' report is that Atlanta is hoping to pair him with John Collins, which I would have thought that Atlanta would have moved John Collins because they've been trying to trade John Collins for a while now for Jae Crowder and some other things potentially. And then you kind of figure out more of a wing guy next to Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu for them. But it sounds like they want to keep Collins. So I'm like, all right, what do you trade? What are the Hawks trying to trade for Jae Crowder? Like, you're just kind of taking bench pieces? I don't know what it is for Miami. I don't think the Heat at this point would trade Duncan Robinson for Jae Crowder. I really don't, but who knows? And also the salary
cap flexibility.
The salary doesn't work for Phoenix anyway, so that's a non-starter for them in the first place. And then the only other option is, hey, in December and January when Oladipo, Caleb Martin, Dwayne Dedmon, when those contracts become tradable, you could put two of those together. I mean, you could basically just take Caleb Martin and Dwayne Dedmon and put those together, and you get the Jae Crowder contract. That's the cleanest version of it. But then you're losing 2 rotation players for 1 rotation piece, and that does not strike me as something that's beneficial for a guy like Jae Crowder who's good, but not so much of an upgrade over any of those players that you're like, yeah, we got to do this in a 2-for-1. I said this before, I'll say it again. The name I'm looking at is Harrison Barnes. That, to me, I'd be willing to trade real stuff for him, because he's a real upgrade, an elite corner three-point shooter, a much more versatile defender who can also obviously do some stuff off the dribble and in isolation, which I think could be a needed thing for this Heat offense. But we have no indication that he's traded
this way in the past.
What?
Miami's operated this way in the past. They made trades in order to clear up the salary cap down the road. And given Duncan's lucrative contract a few years from now, maybe that's the play there too, is they say, you know what, we can bring in Jae, maybe re-sign him, maybe not, who knows. We've heard that one of the complaints from Crowder in Phoenix is that he wasn't getting a contract extension.
Right.
We know that's always been a priority for him to have the stability to be able to rely on a long-term contract. He's not going to get it here, especially when you have so many other young players on contract years.
Sure.
But at least you have the option if you do trade away Duncan. I'm not saying that's the right move. I'm not saying Miami's considering it, but I think if that's one option, that's probably the only option. Is you're looking to get a player like Crowder who can fit in immediately so that you can have some more salary cap flexibility down the road.
That's a good point. Let's get to this last one quickly. John writes in, Paul George compared taking a backseat to Kawhi in LA to Dwayne Wade taking a backseat to LeBron during the Big Three era. Do you think that that's a fair comparison? David, you're already shaking your head.
No, I do not think it's a fair comparison. Paul Pierce is not a top 10 player in the NBA right now. He has never, maybe possibly been flirting around
Pierce?
top 10-ish type player. I'm sorry, did I say Paul Pierce? Either way, Paul Pierce.
Agree. Paul Pierce is not a top 10 player in the NBA right now. So
yeah, he's not.
The point stands.
Paul George. But Paul's not yet taking a step back. Like, I like that. I mean, I guess for the sake of your fan base, it's always good to clarify. No, this is Kawhi's team. I defer to him. No shit, Sherlock. Like, you didn't have a choice in the matter. Kawhi was taking that ball and he was going to shoot it whether you gave him the ball or not. So I don't think this is him taking a step back and figuring out what works. They haven't even played on the court together other than a handful of games over the last couple seasons. So this isn't like, 2011 when Dwayne said, you know what, in order to get the best version of Kawhi or LeBron James, I need to take a step back and figure out how to change my game. That's not what Paul George has done. He's going to continue to take 30-foot shots off the dribble. He's going to occasionally drive to the rim. He's going to be a really, really good player. But he's not taking a step back the same way Dwayne did in 2011.
I don't know. We'll see. I think he needs it. I think the Clippers need that. Before it was very much 1A, 1B, your turn, my turn with Kawhi and PG when we have seen them on the court together. And I just never thought that they complemented each other's games well at all. I just didn't think there was much of a two-man game there. And it sort of developed a little bit. And then obviously Kawhi missed all of last season, so we never really got a chance to see it. I think it's needed, but he's not. Look, it's not LeBron and Dwayne Wade. I don't even like Kawhi is not what LeBron was back then, regardless of what you think about Paul George comparing himself to Dwayne Wade that in 2011. But it's not to that level. But I do think the comparison from an X's and O's standpoint does make sense because, like D Wade and LeBron, I think Paul George and Kawhi do operate and occupy some of the same areas of the floor, and they need to just figure out a way to complement each other the way that D Wade and LeBron did. So I think if you're a Clippers fan, you like it, but at the end of the day, it's all just preseason messaging and nonsense. Like, just let's see it on the floor before we make any.
It's downright sacrilegious in South Florida. I can't believe he said that. That's ridiculous. Like, that's one example of a very publicized taking a step back or deferment or something like that. But it's happened throughout NBA history. I mean, I don't know that Earl the Pearl Monroe was going to be like, oh, I'm taking a step back because I'm playing with Clyde Frazier. I know that's going back way into the history books here, but we've seen players at similar positions have to figure out how to play with one another. I don't think it's the same thing. And I don't know what to expect out of the Clippers this year. They're certainly a title contender, but to say that just feels wrong to me anyway. Maybe I'm making a bigger deal out of it, but it just feels wrong.
Well, we'll have a recap of tonight's preseason game, Miami Heat, Houston Rockets. We will be recapping that after the game on Monday night. But for now, thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet. It's free. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. David, thanks for joining me.
Better at their peak, Paul Pierce or Paul George?
Who? Peak? Probably Paul George, right?
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, they both suck. Who cares?